The boat's engine cut at exactly 2:47 a.m. I know because I checked my watch in the darkness, wondering why we'd stopped so far from shore. That's when I heard my brother's voice through the cabin wall. Do it now before she wakes up. My name is Casey Brennan, and that night my own family tried to murder me for money they didn't know I'd already hidden where they could never find it. Before I tell you exactly what I left them in my will and how it destroyed everything they'd spent a year plotting to steal, tell me in the comments, has someone you trusted ever betrayed you for money? I read every single story because I know that feeling of realizing the people who were supposed to love you only saw dollar signs. Rewind 18 months. I was 32 years old, working as a maritime salvage diver in Portland, Maine. Not glamorous. I spent my days in freezing Atlantic water pulling rotted fishing nets off propellers and inspecting hull damage. My hands were always cracked and bleeding. My hair smelled like diesel and salt. But I was good at it. Really good. And I didn't need much. A small apartment above a bait shop. My old truck. My dive gear. My father, Warren Brennan, owned Brennan Maritime Holdings. 3 shipping ports, 24 cargo vessels, real estate up and down the eastern seaboard. He was worth somewhere north of $40 million. But you wouldn't know we were related by looking at my life. Warren had made it very clear from the time I was 14 that I was a disappointment. I wasn't aggressive enough. I didn't have the stomach for business. I chose manual labor over boardrooms. You're weak, he told me once at a family dinner, loud enough for everyone to hear. That's why I'm leaving everything to your brother. My brother, Derek, was 29. Harvard MBA. Sharp suits. Sharper smile. He ran the operations side of the company and spent his weekends on yachts with politicians and investors. Our younger sister Brooke. Wait, I can't use that name. Let me start again. My younger sister, Natalie, was 26. She worked in marketing for the family business, which really meant she threw launch parties and smiled for photos in magazines. She was beautiful, charming, and completely hollow. I didn't care about being left out of the will. I really didn't. I had built my own life. My own money. My own reputation. What I cared about was Grandma Irene. Grandma Irene was 81 years old and lived in the original Brennan family house in Cape Elizabeth, a beautiful Victorian on the cliffs overlooking the ocean. She had raised me when my mother died of cancer when I was 9. While Warren was busy building his empire, Irene taught me to tie knots, read tide charts, and fix engines. She was the one who bought me my first wetsuit. She told me I didn't need to be like Warren to be valuable. Last summer Irene called me. Her voice was shaking. Casey, I need you to come to the house. Don't tell your father. I drove there that afternoon. She met me at the door, her hands trembling as she held a thick envelope. I'm dying, she said simply. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months. I felt the air leave my lungs. Grandma. Listen to me. She pushed the envelope into my hands. This is the deed to this house. It's in your name now. I transferred it this morning. And this. She pulled out a second envelope. This is the access code to a safety deposit box at Atlantic Trust Bank in Portland. There's something inside I need you to protect. What is it? She smiled, but it was sad. Tired. The original ownership documents for Brennan Maritime. Your grandfather didn't just own the shipping business, Casey. He owned the ports themselves. The land. Warren has been operating under a 99-year lease that expires in 3 years. When it does, the ports revert to whoever holds the deed. That's you now. I stared at her. Why me? Because Warren would sell them. Derek would leverage them into debt. Natalie would throw a party on them. But you. She touched my face. You understand what they mean. You respect the water. You respect the work. You won't destroy what your grandfather built. The ports alone were worth $15 million. Maybe more. Don't tell anyone until I'm gone, Irene said. And Casey? Be careful. Your father is not a good man when money is involved. She died 4 months later. The funeral was on a gray October morning. Warren gave a speech about legacy and family that made my stomach turn. Derek and Natalie cried on cue for the cameras. I stood in the back in my only black dress, holding the safety deposit key in my pocket like a talisman. The reading of the will happened the next week. Warren's lawyer, Mr. Grayson, sat at the head of the long table in Warren's office. Derek and Natalie sat on either side of Warren, all 3 of them looking smug and entitled. I sat alone at the far end. Grayson cleared his throat. Irene Brennan left the family home in Cape Elizabeth to her granddaughter, Casey Brennan. Warren's head snapped toward me. What? The house was transferred into Casey's name 6 months ago. It's legally hers. Derek laughed. That shack. Fine. Let her have it. Probably costs more to heat than it's worth. But Warren wasn't laughing. He was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Calculation. Suspicion. Fear. Was there anything else? Warren asked Grayson slowly. No. The remainder of Mrs. Brennan's estate, including her personal savings, was left to you, Mr. Brennan. Warren relaxed slightly. But I could see his mind working. He knew Irene had hated him. He knew she wouldn't have left him everything. Which meant she'd hidden something. That night I went to the bank. Inside the safety deposit box were 3 things. The original port deeds, a handwritten letter from Irene explaining the lease expiration, and a sealed envelope labeled, "Open if Warren comes for you." I didn't open it. Not yet. But I took the deeds to a lawyer I trusted, a woman named Angela Torres. Wait, I can't use Torres. I took the deeds to Angela Foster, a maritime attorney I'd worked with on salvage cases. She reviewed everything. Casey, this is ironclad. These ports are legally yours in 3 years. But if your father finds out... He won't, I said. Not until it's too late. But I underestimated how paranoid Warren had become. 2 months after the funeral, Derek invited me to Thanksgiving at Warren's estate. I almost said no. I hadn't spoken to any of them since the will reading. But Derek sounded sincere on the phone. Come on, Case. We're still family. Let's not let money ruin that. So I went. It was a mistake. Dinner was tense. Warren barely looked at me. Natalie made passive-aggressive comments about my quaint little life. But Derek was different. He was warm. Friendly. He asked about my diving work. He laughed at my stories. He poured my wine. After dinner, Derek suggested we go out on Warren's yacht the next morning. Just you and me, he said. Like when we were kids. We used to love being on the water together. It was true. Before Derek became Warren's shadow, we'd been close. I wanted to believe that person was still in there somewhere. So the next morning I met Derek at the marina. The boat was a 50-foot cruiser called the Legacy. Settle. Derek was already on board, grinning, 2 thermoses of coffee in his hands. I made your favorite. Hazelnut, extra cream. We motored out past the harbor into open water. The ocean was calm. The sky was gray. Derek and I stood on the deck drinking coffee, talking about nothing. I started to relax. Maybe this was real. Maybe he did want to reconnect. Then I felt it. A strange heaviness in my limbs. My vision started to blur at the edges. Derek. My voice sounded far away. I don't feel good. He smiled. It wasn't warm anymore. Yeah. That's the Ambien kicking in. I tried to stand, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. The thermos fell from my hands and rolled across the deck. What did you? 3 crushed pills, he said casually. Should be enough to keep you under for a few hours. Long enough. The cabin door opened. Natalie stepped out. Then Warren. They'd all been hiding below deck. Why? I whispered. My knees buckled. Derek caught me, but not gently. He dragged me toward the railing. Warren stepped closer. His face was cold. Irene left you something. I know she did. The house is just a distraction. There's more. And you're going to tell me what it is. I don't. Don't lie to me. He grabbed my face, his fingers digging into my jaw. She hated me. She wouldn't have left me everything. Where is it, Casey? What did she give you? I couldn't answer. The drugs were pulling me under. My body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She's not going to talk, Natalie said. He sounded bored. And we can't risk her going to a lawyer. You said it yourself, Dad. If there's something out there, we need to find it before she uses it against us. Warren stared at me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Derek lifted me up. I tried to fight, but my arms were useless. I'm sorry, Case, he whispered. But you should have just stayed small. And then he pushed me overboard. The cold water hit me like a hammer. I went under immediately, my lungs seizing. The drugs made it impossible to swim. The light above me faded. I could hear the muffled sound of the boat's engine starting again. They were leaving me. My family had just murdered me. Something in my brain screamed. A deep primal survival instinct that cut through the ambient fog. I forced my arms to move. I kicked. My lungs were burning. I broke the surface, gasping, choking on seawater. The boat was already 200 yards away, disappearing into the gray horizon. I was alone. Miles from shore. Drugged and freezing. I should have died. Any normal person would have. But I wasn't normal. I was a diver. I'd spent years in water colder than this. I'd trained for worst-case scenarios. And more than that, I was furious. I floated on my back, forcing myself to breathe slowly, conserving energy. The drugs made everything feel distant and dreamlike, but I kept my mind focused on one thing: survive. Make them pay. I don't know how long I was in the water. Hours. The sun started to set. My body went numb. I started hallucinating. I saw Irene's face in the clouds. I heard her voice, "Don't you dare give up." And then, a miracle. A fishing trawler appeared on the horizon. I screamed. I waved my arms. I used every ounce of strength I had left. They saw me. The captain, a grizzled man named Pete Sullivan, pulled me on board. I was hypothermic, barely conscious. They wrapped me in blankets and radioed the Coast Guard. By the time we reached shore, I was in and out of consciousness. I woke up in a hospital bed 3 days later. The doctor told me I was lucky to be alive. The police told me they'd found Warren's yacht. Derek claimed I'd fallen overboard accidentally after drinking too much. They'd searched for me for hours, he said, before assuming I'd drowned. Warren had already filed a death certificate request. They thought I was dead. And that's when I realized they'd handed me the greatest weapon I could ever have. I told the police I didn't remember what happened. Head injury. Trauma. The doctors backed me up. The case was closed as an accident. I was released from the hospital a week later. But I didn't go home. I disappeared. I stayed with Angela Foster. She helped me move my things out of my apartment in the middle of the night. We hired a private investigator named Jack Reeves. And together we built a plan. For 6 months I was a ghost. I watched from the shadows as Warren, Derek, and Natalie tore my life apart looking for the deeds. They ransacked the Cape Elizabeth house. They broke into my old apartment. They bribed bank employees, threatened my friends, and hired forensic accountants. They found nothing. Because I'd moved everything into an offshore trust the day after Irene died. But while they were searching, I was working. Jack Reeves discovered that Warren had been embezzling from his own company for years. Shell accounts. Fake vendors. He'd been funneling millions into offshore accounts to avoid taxes. Derek was in on it. So was Natalie. Angela helped me file a lawsuit against Brennan Maritime Holdings for the return of the port properties. But we didn't file it under my name. We filed it under a shell corporation. They had no idea it was me. And then I opened the sealed envelope Irene had left me. Inside was a video recording. Irene sitting in her living room, weak and pale from chemo, speaking directly to the camera. "If you're watching this, Casey, it means Warren came for you. I'm so sorry. I knew he might. That's why I'm giving you this." She held up a leather journal. "This is your grandfather's diary. Every illegal deal Warren ever made is documented here. Bribery, fraud, and tax evasion. Use it and destroy him." I watched that video 10 times. And then I went to work. The trap was set for Warren's annual investor gala, a black tie event at the Portland Harbor Hotel. Every major player in East Coast shipping would be there. The mayor, senators, CEOs. It was Warren's stage. His moment to show the world how powerful he was. I bought a ticket under a fake name. I wore a red dress I'd never worn before and dyed my hair black. I looked nothing like the Casey Brennan they thought had drowned. I walked into that ballroom like a ghost returning from the dead. Warren was on stage, giving a speech about legacy and the future of Brennan Maritime. Derek and Natalie sat at the head table, smiling. They looked so confident. So safe. I waited until Warren was mid-sentence. Then I stood up. "Excuse me," I said loudly. My voice cut through the room like a knife. Warren stopped. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at me. I pulled off my wig. Derek's face went white. Natalie gasped. Warren's mouth opened but no sound came out. "Hi, Dad," I said. "Miss me?" The room erupted in whispers. I walked toward the stage, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Security moved to stop me, but Angela was already there, flashing legal documents. My name is Casey Brennan, I said, my voice steady. 6 months ago my father and siblings tried to kill me by throwing me off a boat and leaving me to drown. They did this because they believed I had inherited something valuable from my grandmother. They were right. I held up the deeds. I own the ports that Brennan Maritime operates on. The lease expires in 3 years. As of today, I'm formally notifying the company that the lease will not be renewed. Warren tried to speak, but I cut him off. I'm also filing criminal charges for attempted murder. And I'm turning over evidence to the FBI that you've been embezzling from your own company for 12 years. I placed Grandpa's journal on the table in front of him. Grandma Irene says hello. The fallout was nuclear. Warren, Derek, and Natalie were arrested that night. The evidence was overwhelming. The embezzlement charges alone carried 15-year sentences. The attempted murder charges added another 25. Brennan Maritime Holdings collapsed within weeks. Investors fled. The company declared bankruptcy. But the ports? Those were mine. I sold them to an ethical shipping co-op for $18 million. I used the money to start a foundation in Irene's name that provides grants to women in maritime trades. Warren is currently serving 30 years in federal prison. Derek got 20. Natalie, who flipped on both of them, got 10. I sold the Cape Elizabeth house. Too many ghosts. Now I live on a small island off the coast of Maine. I still dive. I still work. But I do it on my own terms. Sometimes I stand on my dock and look out at the water. I think about that night. How close I came to dying. How they underestimated me one last time. They thought I was weak. They thought I was nothing. They forgot that the ocean doesn't kill the people who respect it. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to love you, this story is for you. Drop a comment and tell me your story. Hit subscribe if you believe that justice isn't always served by the system. Sometimes we have to build it ourselves. And check out the next video on your screen because you're not going to believe what happened when they finally opened Irene's safety deposit box in court. Stay strong. Stay smart. And never let them see you coming.